Brakathia Hawa, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Hawa, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Hawa, Brakathia Hawa, Bashim Shai, Bahashem, Chakudash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Sadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman, this week's topic is going to be entitled Recession, Inflation, Capitulation? I'll come up with the title. Well enough to the lesson. But, I just want to speak on this recession. By the way, a recession, by the U.S. definition, if you will, is 2 back-to-back quarters of negative GDP growth. And I was watching this thing on Everything Money. I follow them. This guy, Paul, a so-called Jew, he was pretty much talking on the fact that the feds are saying, look, man, dark times are ahead, that they're going to keep raising rates. They're trying their best to curb inflation. And, when they curb inflation, to average Americans feel it the most. They get hurt the most. Put people in binds. Because what happens is when the feds raise the rates, people are less inclined to go out and borrow and spend. A lot of people, they spend on credit, they spend on debt, and you don't want to buy something for $100 and then have to pay $130 back to somebody. But maybe if you have to pay back $105, you're more inclined to do it. So that's just a little quick example. So the feds have printed all this money. Also, a lot of these jobs, your Amazons, your Facebooks and such, the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, they're having to cut and lay off a lot of employees. Why? Because during the pandemic, they pretty much overstaffed themselves, and now that they're hurting, they're going to have to let a lot of people go. See, and a lot of people now too, they don't want to go to work, man. People want to do remote jobs. So we see in a situation where the U.S. economy is halting a bit, None of this would happen if the so-called white man governed the land by the laws of the Bible. Let me get it, actually. This is Deuteronomy 25:13. It reads, "Thou shalt not have in thy bag diverse weights." Right. You're not supposed to have in thy bag diverse weights, a great and a small. Thou shalt not have in thine house diverse measures, a great and a small. Let me see what they have here for diverse. In other words, an unequal measure. You're not supposed to have unequal measures in terms of money. But thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. You know how the US dollar is a perfect example of a diverse measure, an unbalanced measure? Because if you was to take this money and go 10 years back, you could buy a lot more with it, man. Because the price of these FRNs and these different things could be manipulated by outside forces. When man can manipulate the money supply, then of course it's going to be diverse. Whereas the most size money, gold, you can't manipulate that. You can't say, we have 1 million gold now, let's make it 1 billion. Nah, man. It says, but thou shalt have a perfect and just weight. Gold, silver, cattle. And don't dilute it. Well, we got histories of people that diluted it. The Romans, they began to devalue their currencies by diluting it with lesser metals, till it eventually wasn't worth shit. It says, a perfect and just measure shalt thou have, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord thy power hath given thee. So when you deal justly with a just currency, the Lord lengthens your days. But it works the opposite for fiat currency, which fiat means fade back. A lot of these currencies that are no longer backed by shit, U.S. dollar included, which is now legal tender, um, it just inevitably dooms a society. There's a video up there on YouTube. A guy said, "Look, man, no no empire that has used fiat currency has survived. They all eventually die." I was on before I read Revelation 6 and 5 and 6. What's interesting was I saw when I was looking up inflation versus I saw a site break it down correctly. It said, look at this. They gave a few precepts about having an honest balance to curb inflation. But this from this article here. It says the problem with dishonest measures is that if you pay $10 to get 10 ounces of a product, but the seller only gives you 8 ounces, then the purchasing power of your money has decreased, which is true. That's what happens here. You're paying far more than what you did a couple years back for far less. In reality, you're not paying. In reality, you're paying not $1 per ounce, but $1.25 per ounce. Instant inflation, right? Unjust or diverse measures, which goes on here. The Bible injunctions against dishonest weights and measures, if followed, would help curb inflation. Global inflation is predicted to occur during tribulation as a part of the Most High's judgment on earth. And look, I was surprised when I read this. I was like, well, that's true. It says, when the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." I look, and there before him was a black horse. That black horse represents famine. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages. So this, whatever Bible they use, and this is not the King James, but it's all right. It's all right because this interpretation is particularly accurate. It was saying 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and so in other words, that's deflation. Inflation. That's the 2 pounds of wheat for a day's work is not right. This is what they say. They say adjusted for inflation, anybody making less than $24 an hour is working below minimum wage. Most people aren't working $24 an hour, but you know what the problem is? Inflation. You see, they think because they're working $18 or above $15 an hour that they're making more money, but the cost of goods, we just read it above, you're getting far less with that money. So that inflation has hit people. And when things get inflated, companies could do all right. They could raise their prices. It's the average consumer that suffers, and it makes things even more tight. It halts the economy because they don't want to go out and spend. You see? It says, and do not damage to the oil and the wine, which represents the truth. In this judgment, the luxuries are still available, but the necessities will be in short supply significantly. This third horseman of the apocalypse follows the bringer of war. So that's true. This is true. All right. Because when it concerning famine doesn't have to be we don't have any more food. Famine couldn't be just a lack of access to food. And you got a lot of workers, a lot of train truckers and shit that don't want to work no more, and everybody feel like they're getting ripped off and not getting paid enough. So it don't take much for the grocery store to run out of food. All right. It says the reality of inflation should remind all of us that riches are fleeting. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. That's true. That's accurate. Proverbs 23:5. Riches have wings, man. Like Red Bull, they can just come and go. Oh man, it's a spirit. We was talking about this one dude that was in a camp amongst Great Millstone years ago, and he's out there in, I believe, Arkansas. Dude hit for over 200 and anywhere from 240 to 270, 240 to 247,000 or 270,000. It was definitely more than 220K. And when it came, as soon as that guy hit that money, guess what? Bought a house, and you ain't see his ass no more. Now, me and the brother was talking. We was just like, look, man, the both side. That dude sold himself cheap. You know, you could have bought that crib. The most out to burn that house down and shit. You know, or more than likely that money's gone too. Any goddamn ways. You know, dude won the lottery and shit. So, and more, and the scriptures also said, riches profit little in the day of wrath. So those that take a bag or a purse to be comfortable in this world and depart from the work. Because I want to say this. Let's say you want some bread, right? And you want to buy a house. I can't fault you. But pay your alms, pay your tithes. You know, pay your offerings, be charitable. This nigga had the bread in his hand, chose his belly. So the Lord's going to deal with people like that, man. The Lord just gave that dude that money for it to be a stumbling block onto him and eventually fall out. All of us have, at one time or another, felt like the people in Haggai's day. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. Yeah, this is happening now. Again, this is what happens when you have an unjust balance. You know, if your money just sits in your pocket over time, it will just lose value. It says our trust should be in something more reliable. Paul enjoined the rich not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in the Most High, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. 1 Timothy 6 and 17. 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter, is a good chapter with dealing with contentment and concerning money and stuff, you know. It says, rich or poor, we can store up treasures in heaven. We have a sure hope than the shrinking value of money, right? This is true. Those who trust in their riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like the green leaf. So a lot of these people in America has trusted in the riches and trusted in the ways of the so-called white man, ultimately to get burned, all right? And the fact that they're making shit even more tight, again, pushing people back into the corner. We read it, this prophecy, man. Famine, the devaluing of currency, inflation, all roads, say them time and time again, all roads leads to that RFID microchip, man. That's the major prophecy that we're dealing with. Okay? Yeah, man, so the American people are hurt. The Fed Chairman Jerome Powell pretty much said, look, man, it's going to be like this for a minute. You know? And that's some prophecies being fulfilled in Revelations, the 6th chapter. Right? This is what happens when you deal with a money that is cankered, that is diverse, and a society that's run by the so-called white man. You have disaster. You have people starving. Pretty much, you have people mourning, as the scripture says. All right? Because when the righteous bear rule, people rejoice, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Right? It's not official that we are in recession yet, but let's see. You know, let's see what they say for the next coming quarter. People are going to even be more penny pinching and shit, man. Murders and crimes is already going up. So, hey, man, the Lord got a lot going on right now, man. But, hey, with that, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Chakodash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim, that do this thing in most truth and sincerity. Shalom.